Hello everyone, and welcome back to another Wano patch preview, which will come with the Nemesis 4 DLC that will release soon. The release date not announced yet by Fusion, but it should be in the next couple of days. And with that comes, as always, a free patch, and this one is pretty sizable. It has two mechanic changes that we're gonna look at first, and then a good couple of balance, new map variants, and so on. And the first one here is that AA guns on the ground now deal less damage towards infantry. So we're gonna spawn in an enemy infantry unit here, and let's have a look how this goes. So it still does a lot of stress, but it deals 50% less damage. So as you can see, the ZU-23 takes a lot longer to kill the guards. In a 1v1 situation, they will still win on these ranges. If we now spawn in one, that is you, and we spawn in two enemy units here, and we move this one away and not let it fire, then you will see that the ZU-23 will lose the fight. So 1 versus 2, the ZU-23 now will get overwhelmed. So these aren't the bane of your existence anymore. They are still strong, they are still decent fire support, but they're not gonna just absolutely shred your units like they did before. And then the second thing we got is that bombers, high altitude bombers with HE, cluster, and napalm. Laser guided bombs are unchanged so far, but those kind of carpet bombers, they now drop their bombs a lot faster and turn away. So as you can see, I targeted these guards and it started topping the bombs here, and they fall a good bit faster as well. There is still a bit of time between drop and impact, so you have still a bit of time to maybe get out of the way if you are on a fast vehicle, but infantry and slower tanks and vehicles won't be able to dodge this anymore. So high altitude bombers are a lot more impactful. Currently the price hasn't changed. I feel like we will have to change the prices up for this a bit, or some of them at least, because this is going to be strong, but it also makes a lot more sense, and the time of just endless dive bombers, especially in 1v1, might be over, and high altitude bombers finally might have a role to play. 250 kilogram bombs, still a bit underwhelming, but all the bigger bomb ones should be pretty good now, like we just saw here. So let's go into the general changes. And first, we have two new maps for 1v1, and Cliff also got the 3v3 destruction and a 10v10 version. So one for basically everyone. And there's gonna be 16 recuts of existing maps for Army General that weren't there before. Like we got Izura, we got Surrounded, and so over the last few patches, they are now also an Army General with 16 cut variants of 4 or 5 maps, and those will be added to Army General. So Army General map variety should be a lot better in the rotation there. And here on Cliff Duel, you will fight over the town on the north side. So that is going to be interesting. Cliff Duel here having this part. On the 3v3 and 10v10 variant, you have the whole map, just with different zone layouts than before. On the 1v1 variant, the town is the major point, 9-point map. And same thing for Albion, it's also a 9-pointer round, which is pretty cool. The first non-German map in ranked. And Albion was a really, really cool map, so nice to have it here as well. But I'm not 100% sure about the balance of these two. I believe it should be decent, but we'll see how it goes. Delta point here is the one contested, and then you have 3 secure points for each side, mainly fighting over the plateau with the airport, and then a couple of fights around here. The cut-off area is not that big, but it makes it a decent-sized 1v1 map. Like, this is usually how big 1v1 maps are, so this is totally fine. And I think it should play pretty okay. It's gonna be a mechanized focus map, I believe, because it's a lot of open spaces. Like, you have some forest lines, but between the forests there are always gaps, so mechanized play here should be dominating. as you also have to get access to the buildings around the middle of the map. And that's going to be tough to resupply into as an infantry division. So yeah, these are the new maps, and let's now have a look on the general balance changes. And there we're going to start with the M1IP Abrams CP that now has its correct price difference to the IP that got buffed in the last patch. So it's now at 270 points, small buff to the divisions that run this, as you usually take the M1IP CP in those decks as well. So 270 instead of 280 points now, as it should be. And then for the Americans in the helicopters, we have the AH-6G Little Bird, which is only in 101st, going down from 75 to 65. So it's still 10 points more expensive than the normal Little Bird, but it also obviously gets a better gun here with the Gao and 5 more rockets. So 10 price point difference makes sense. The 20 point was a bit too much, both 4 hit points, so both easy to kill. But this should help out bringing these guys around a bit more. And then we have the air tab, a pretty impactful change. One of the planes that was dominating a bit got put back into place. The F4E Phantom now gets the AM7F instead of the AM7M. And that makes sense. That brings it back to exactly the same stats that it had before the Southpack DLC, where we got the AM7M range buff and the AM7F added to Spanish. So now the Phantom here is using the AM7F as well, which has the same stats as this AM7M had beforehand, with 7,775 meter range. And the Phantom was already really good fighter there. With the AM7M buff, it became NATO's best and likely the best fighter in the game when it comes to pure cost efficiency. So this change and slight nerf makes sense, hitting here for US and the CLKA division, but not a major nerf, and a right decision here as well to take out and make it also a bit more different to the F-16s. And then we have one slight buff to the 9th US infantry. The folds go up to 5 base availability. It was a bit of balancing around the GSR units, and that means all non-special forces GSR that come at 0 vet have 5 availability at 0 vet. All the special forces GSR will come with 4 availability at 2 vet, and then 2 availability at 3 vet. So we're gonna have that a couple of times now. And for this unit it's a buff, or a couple of others it's gonna be a nerf, but you're gonna see that later on. And then one unit that got its availability buffed as well is the fire team with the 84, which is coming with the Bradley in 30 US and 24th, and without a Bradley, and only in Humvees in 8 US. So this one now comes with 964 availability on the veterancy instead of 853, so 1 availability on every veterancy level, so small infantry availability and performance buff to those 3 divisions. Nothing major, but I believe you take the 84 team quite often now again. And then one little unit change for the 6 US infantry is that their 50 cal, the M2HB that comes with airborne, now also has the same veterancy curve as their other airborne units. I don't quite understand why it's not just the AB that we have in 82nd, why it is called like a normal. Ah, yeah, right, because it has the tripod. But yeah, it's coming in as the same price point with the same veterancy now. So small buff here. The veterancy gonna help out, making this a good bit more efficient if you're interested. And then the last US change is 235th, as you now, for the Dragon and the Law, get the National Guard M113 ACAF, which we know from 6 US already. So, and here you get them now as well as a transport option if you want to have a bit of extra fire support from those units instead of just a normal 50 cal National Guard M113. You can get 2 extra MGs, but you pay 10 points for it. So that's an option there as well now. Now let's come to the UK, where we have a pretty big buff to Chieftain Mark 9, Mark 10, and Mark 11. They all go down 10 points. their command variants go down 10 points as well, from 210 to 200. Chieftain Mark 10 and Chieftain Mark 11, which are stat clones, going to 108 from 180 to 170, and Chieftain Mark 9 from 140 to 130 points. So this should help out 4th US especially, but also the new HDR and the first UK armored a good bit too. So these divisions should be a lot more potent, and especially first UK might go up quite solidly into A tier now again. So they got nerfed with their warrior last patch, so I don't think it's gonna be making this division OP, as the nerfs were good at balancing it out a bit, but it should be in a quite decent spot. The Rocket Gazelle of 4th UK got buffed as well in base availability. It goes up to 4 from 3. Still, I usually gonna take the Chancellor over this, but it might be a decent option if you want to go for it. And then we also have the military police rover added to all the military police unit all around that these divisions have. And then in 4th, we also got a fully new unit, and that is the Scimitar Spy class. And that is an exceptional optics scimitar because it has extra optics built on it, meaning that you get a great fighting unit that can accompany your tanks, that gives them exceptional optics recon, similar to how the Fox upgrade here works. So Spy class Scimitar really going a nice way for 4th UK. So 4th UK with some really solid buffs in this patch, and that's gonna make this quite nice division. Then we come to the West Germans. Oh, and there's also a change that I forgot for the Americans. The UH-1D ammunition that now has 750 supply, comes at 8 availability instead of 10. Price is unchanged, so in general, more efficient at resupplying your stuff. And 750 supply, pretty solid. So UH-1D ammunition supply helicopter for the Germans and the Americans should be in a pretty decent spot. That's the only direct unit change for the Germans. And the PKS is going to be affected by the French change, as their new unit, new GSR unit that got added to them, now has the 5 availability instead of 3 availability. The Aero Eclairs, yeah, that we get in TKS now has 5 base availability instead of 6 on 0 vet. So that's a direct change to the division of the Germans, but it's a French unit. And then we have a buff to 6 Blinde. The MX10s in their tank tab, they all go down 5 points. So MX10 RC PC from 130 to 125, the MX10 RC Spies 110 to 105, and the Legion from 140 to 135, making this division a bit less cost inefficient and really should be able to help you out affording 1 or 2 more units in the opener, and that is pretty helpful for the division. It's not going to be a major buff, but the slight buff here to these units should help out, making 6 Leger Airplane a bit more viable. It's not a terrible division, so it didn't need a massive buff. And these units still have good killing power, so we didn't want to go super ham, but because they don't have the good stealth and the good optics of the recon ones, they can't ambush you as well, so they're really just class cannon hard hitters, so having them a good bit more down in price compared to their tank tab variant, to their recon tab variant, made sense. So the price changes here. And then we have a small buff to the MX 1390, which comes in Berlin Command. So Berlin Command getting 3 buffs here with the M1IP CV, the Chieftain Mark 10, and the MX 1390, which goes from 50 to 45 points. So tank tab of Berlin Command eating good in this one, and the 152nd getting this buff as well. The MX 1390 might be worthwhile taking now, as they have greater rate of fire, the frontal armor, and the accuracy of the gun are a bit of an issue. You have a smoke at least on it, so for 45 points, really might be worthwhile taking here. So that is going to be interesting. That brings us to the Netherlands, where we have 2 changes. First, Leo 1V now comes with the availability curve of other Leo 1A1s and so on. So it now goes, instead of 853, it comes 964. So the 1V in a pretty good spot, being in between the 2275 and the 1925 meter range Leos. So goes now the availability of the letter. That should help out Leo 1V a bit. You get one more basically on every veterancy, and as you always take this in CLK, a small buff to CLK, which is already a solid division. So nice to get this. Not really massively impactful, but should help. For the fourth, there is a small nerf, the KCT Volcaners, which came at 6 availability, basically giving you 3 GSR infantry throughout the game. That is not going to happen anymore. You only get 4 of them now, which is a pretty important nerf, but not going to change massively how the division plays. Just that you have to be a bit more careful with your recon units and to get good eyes on the enemy. So helpful nerf to a division that was performing really, really well. So this makes sense. Belgians got hit similar on their GSR unit, going from 6 to 4 as well on the ESR GVP. 16th performing really well in the league at the moment as well, so this makes sense as well. And they also get compensated for it because the Milan, AFB Milan here, goes from 40 to 35 points, is in 16th as a transport for their Milan units. So AFB Milan now in a pretty good spot. 50 cal plus Milan, 35 points is a fair price point. It's still not amazing if you compare it, for example, to the BMP ones or so on, but with the 50 cal and a solid ATGM with the Milan one of 35, it's still a unit that you absolutely gonna take. So nice buff there to the Belgians. Spanish get some buffs as well. We might as well look into the Spanish division there, because that's the only Spanish division that we have so far. And there we go with an availability buff to the AMX30 EM2 Stabilier. That gets one more at each availability, going from 642 to 753. So one more of your best tank. That's always nice. The toe here gets one better availability as well, going from 532 to 642. So light availability buff there to this as well. So another nice buff to the Spanish. The most impactful buff to the Spanish, though, is the buff to the C90 CR. That just gets a flat range buff of 175 meters, going from 500 to 675. Stays at 65% accuracy. Maybe we should reduce that by 5%, and maybe this unit might need to go up in price eventually as well. It's currently unchanged. Same goes for the other unit that has it with the Recon Genetics. So this should help out this division a lot. Like, this is a really impactful range buff, and you get quite a couple of these guys. So that makes the 88 launcher a lot more potent, and that will make the Spanish a good bit better at dealing with light vehicles, which was a bit of the issue before. So nice buffs there. And then a small buff to the S-Bite, which goes down 5 points from 90, and a fix that all the Pegasus now come with 8 hit points because they, for some reason, had 5 before, which just didn't make any sense. So yeah, some small and some bigger buffs to the Spanish there, bringing us to the PACT side of things already. And there we start with an important buff to the 76 VDV, where this division, in my eyes, has been underperforming a long time. I haven't lost to this division in a year, and I have faced it a couple of times, even against players higher on the rank ladder than me, a couple of times as well, and it was just always easy to beat them in the late game. If you knew you can just like kill their planes and then just run them over in the late game, killing off this division felt so easy because they didn't have the cost efficiency on the ground, and that has changed a slight bit. One of their best and their key units on the ground was really cost inefficient. That's the BMD3. So the Vajretka variant coming down 10 points from 130 to 120 points, getting the same price as the Recon Bradley, which it is comparable to, has the weaker ATGM, but has an AGS and an extra MG, so it has more infantry stopping power. So the price comparison makes sense. In the tank tab, it goes from 110 to 95 points, which still might be a slight bit too high. Could even maybe go to 90 or 85 points, but we want to have an eye on it first and not just enable massive crown spam and GM spam that we had with some of the airborne divisions before. So a bit of a more cautious patch, still 15 points down though, from 110 to 95. So this should be worthwhile bringing it around now, which we never saw it around even on league play when we had this division, where it did lose most of the time as well. And yeah, BMD3 is now might be a worthwhile unit again, which is quite nice. We stay in the tank tab as we go to 17th, and on 17th we have two changes. The T64R coming down 10 points, which is nice as well. This at 125 points was just not cost efficient. Its penetration is really low, and it has good frontal armor, and it has good rate of fire, but it doesn't have any extra MGs, so its infantry stopping power is not that amazing. Its speed is okay and all, but this got stunned down most of the time and just died. At 115 points now, it should be a good bit better. Together with the T10M, these two now should go pretty well hand in hand. This one being more capable at penetrating and killing off infantry. This one not being stressed as much, having better rate of fire against lighter vehicles and so on. So these now being cost efficient is nice. There's another unit in this division that got buffed, and that got changed, more so than buffed directly, but that is the ISU 152. It's actually got mostly nerfed, but its main gun, its direct fire gun, got buffed by 10% accuracy, was on a ridiculous 20% accuracy, 15% with the reservist trait. Now it went up to 30 and 25 with the reservist trait. Maybe still a bit too low. Maybe we could buff it 5% more, bring it to 30% accuracy, but it's still a solid buff there to the main gun. And then we have a nerf to its artillery capabilities, because before it was just performing as a cheap artillery piece in your tank tab, like a 152mm, which is a capable artillery piece. It was just performing on par with artillery tab artillery pieces that were way more modern and dedicated for the role and all. And the ICU is a decent artillery piece, so we didn't want to take the shell away or anything and reduce the damage that the shell does. But what we did instead were reducing the miscellaneous sets a bit. The aim time went up to 31.5 seconds, and the reload time went up to 81 seconds. That is on par with the big guns. So this now has the aim time and the reload time of a 2 or 3mm gun instead of the one of a 152mm gun. And that means it's not as efficient as a makeshift artillery piece, but it's still absolutely worthwhile doing that. But you also want to maybe bring it to the front line and not just constantly use it as a makeshift artillery piece. So ICU 152 there changed a bit. But with the T64R buff, the 17th in that regard should be buffed. And then we come to another tank tab change, and that is for all the TADBs out there. And those went down 5 points. ADBV, ADB, ADBV ICD, and the two command variants all went down 5 points. So 265 to 260, 275 to 270. Here I'm a bit unsure. This maybe could have stayed at 275. And the TADB went down to 245 points. So this is going to be interesting. TADB now in a good bit more competent position, helping out 39th and 27th a good bit, and 79th should be in a stronger position once more. As they lost the OSA and so on, they haven't been super dominant. They have been a good deck still though, and 79th will get a bit better with this once more. It's not a massive change, like 5 points not gonna make this insanely cost efficient now, but it's in a decent spot now again, whilst it was slightly overpriced before. And then the last tank that we have changed is the TO-55, both for the East Germans and the Soviets, going down 5 points, being 5 points more expensive than the normal T-55. And to not make it as annoying in Warrant 19th and as overwhelming as it had been in 1v1 with Warrant 19th. One card of TO55s got removed from Warrant 19th, so they now only have one card of those, instead of the two cards that they had before. So nice buff to Berliner Gruppierung again, getting at least a bit of love again, but still needing more. 157th and 79th here, profiting slightly from this as well. And then we have one more unit buff, or two more units buffed for 27th actually, that we can look directly at. First, their Motostrelki RPG 27 now have 9, 6, 4 availability, like normal Motostrelkis. So, yeah, the RPG 29 unit there not getting extra punishment next to for the RPG 29. So, yeah, the RPG 27 now is just a baseline upgrade there. And then in the AA tab, the Tor got buffed 5 points extra for a lot more range, going from 3,800 to 4,425 meter range. So Tor now is doing the anti-air stuff that it should do. It's still not great against dive bombers that dive directly on it, because it will have issues getting the missile on target, but against far away planes it should be a lot more efficient now, and really give 27 a good bit more capabilities against airplanes. And it's now worthwhile bringing over the Tunguska, but Tunguska is still superior at dealing with helicopters. The Tor now is the better anti-aircraft piece because it now has a significant range advantage over the Tunguska. And the good accuracy there helping out as well, also scaling even better now. So that is nice. We also have the MTLB Strela going from 135 to 120 points. So that should be a great helicopter hunter now as well. So I feel like the Tunguska might, which was the main unit in 27th that you would use, might have been replaced fully now by Tors and Strelas. So check your 27th A tab. And then one last change that we have is in the infantry tab to the Reservisti. So that unit that came around mainly in 17th and 47th goes up 5 points. It was similarly spammable to what we had with the div mob, and you could bring out a lot of these guys and just run over the enemy, and 30 points was just a bit bonkers. The divisions themselves being a bit slower and so on, and then div mob not having the forward deployment meant that the divisions went quite as OP, but yeah, it was overpowered for its price point. 35 points makes more sense. The divisions might still need get a bit of love up elsewhere, but yeah, 17th and 157th, they're getting a slight nerf to this unit. Then we come to the East Germans, where we just have one small change that comes to one of their T-72 command tanks. The T-72 MK goes up from 190 to 200 points. So now it has the 30-point price difference to the M variant that it should have. And then with the Polish, we have quite a couple of changes. Mainly to Corpus Dejandovi, as we can just jump right into Corpus Dejandovi to have a look at those, because that makes the most sense. So it's a lot of availability changes and price changes. First, their flamethrower team now comes instead of 6 with base availability, which was just useless for a 3-man squad, going up all the way to 10 availability now though. So that's a lot of availability. It's only a 3-man squad, but you now can bring them around as a flamer, and you might want to bring them around with the Niebiesky ready, as those guys go down 10 points. And they were a bit cost inefficient. It didn't feel like they were terribly cost inefficient, and 5 points I think would have been putting them into a decent spot, and 10 points reduction I think puts them in a really good spot, and you get a lot of those. You get 4 cards of these guys. So Corpus is absolutely back in business. We're gonna have a couple of more buffs that we're gonna talk about, and Nieveski Beretti is one of the main reasons, as this is your bread and butter infantry going down 10 points in price. So this division still didn't get any buffs to how it deals with heavy tanks. So with heavier tanks, with 8 VUS or so, you're still gonna struggle, but I feel like this is going to be an airborne bully division. You're gonna bully other airborne divisions with this, because you're just gonna out cost efficient and spam them. And the rescue brevetti gonna be a big part of this. Their Medis for deploy infantry went down 5 points as well. So this is absolutely worthwhile bringing now as well. 9-man squad for 65 points with the Medis. So that helps a good bit there in the opener as well, saving some prices. And then they also got forward deploy honkers. So the best honkers with the Dejant Cross Speciality, which has better, like the other honker infantry units have recon deployment. This one starts a bit further forward. So you get maximum forward deployment honker Rus now with this division, meaning that you can get all the best spots out there with this division now as well. So Corpus just bullies airborne divisions. And the Strela of there got cheaper as well, meaning that you get a bit cheaper forward deploy Strela as well, helping against helicopters of other airborne divisions. So in general, bullying airborne divisions is what this division does. That said, your 23 is getting nerfed as all the others, so you can't just spam these out against infantry anymore as easily. But the general buffs to this divisions are quite massive. On the other side, the other cross speciality, the normal one, not the GSR ones, that went down to 4 base availability as well. So that was in the other 2 divisions here. These guys that are both in 4th ZMAC and 20th Panzerna went down to 4 base availability, so fewer honkeroos there for those divisions. Not getting 6 anymore, but only 4. So yeah, that is it. And for the Czechoslovaks, the only change is also the same as for the East Germans, that their T-72 Mk3 now went from 190 to 200 to be 30 points more expensive than its base tank variant. So those are the changes. Pretty interesting balance change, with especially the mechanic changes to aircraft. Gonna be interesting. Keep your spawn road safe, guys. Buy some planes maybe early on, because I feel like spawn road bombing is back on the menu. But we're gonna see about that. And yeah, outside of that, T-72 M1s and so on, all gonna be interesting. The 2 new divisions are gonna be really hot. The new 1v1 maps, I'm looking forward to as well. And in the balance, UK, big winner here, I believe, of this, together with the Spanish. Like, those 2 are really significantly buffed. And then Corpus Station Dovey. Look out for Corpus Station Dovey. That one is going to hit really hard with 5-time buff around the division. And I feel like it was already pretty good against other infantry division before, and now it should bully them. Like, it really just should bully them. So thanks for watching, everybody, and see you all in the next one.